video, and we're talking about, before we were talking about those plans by Verizon, Verizon Edge, as well as the sorry, the AT&T Next. If you're a Verizon fan, or you're a Verizon user or an AT&T user, they're coming out with these prepaid plans. We're telling you here on Tech Pulse, stay clear of those plans. Why? Because they are there to rip you off. Definitely, you look at the numbers, they're there just to rip you off. Go to T-Mobile if you're looking for a good prepaid plan. You want to be able to get the latest phones in a prepaid plan. T-Mobile's Jump is the plan that you want to really focus on. Verizon, AT&T, nah. Only if you're looking for paid plans or something like that. You don't mind having a 2-year contract type plan. You could stick with them. You know, $199 down. You don't have to pay any extra service fees. You only have to make sure that you stay within your data limits. As long as you do that, you should be fine with those plans. Now, Apple, according to a report by TechCrunch, Apple confirms that its development center has been breached by hackers. Now, this is not something that Apple readily admits. After 3 days of silence as to why iOS Development Center had been down, Apple has just confirmed that they are investigating a security breach. Developers just began receiving the email below that we're going to read to you here. The email that they sent, Apple has confirmed to us that their email is legitimate. They have confirmed that the email is legitimate according to TechCrunch. Now, according to the email, Apple detected a security breach on its development center's servers last Thursday, but didn't say anything. While most of the information on the servers was encrypted and Apple claims it's safe, they do say that the hackers may have accessed developers' names, addresses, and email addresses. Now, though TechCrunch was yet to hear any reports of any individual accounts being used maliciously, it seems the intruders might already be attempting to use the access data to their advantage. Since the development center went down on Thursday, dozens of reports have surfaced of developers receiving unsolicited password requests, reset requests. A quick search on Twitter turns up a dozen or more of the developers saying that they have received these password reset requests. Now, the email that Apple sent to their developers was this. They said, quote, last Thursday, an intruder attempted to secure personal information of our registered developers from our developer website. Sensitive personal information was encrypted and cannot be accessed. However, we have not been able to rule out the possibility that some developers' names, mailing addresses, and or email addresses may have been accessed. In the spirit of transparency, we want to inform you of this issue. We took the site down immediately on Thursday and have been working around the clock since then. In order to prevent security threats like this from happening again, we're completely overhauling all developer systems, updating our server software, rebuilding our entire database. We apologize for the significant inconvenience that our downtime has caused you, and we expect to have the developer website up again soon. They didn't give an exact date, but they're saying up again soon. Now, they have an update. They're saying that the hack only affected developers' accounts. Standard iTunes accounts were not compromised. Credit card data was not compromised. They waited 3 days to alert developers because they were trying to figure out exactly what data was exposed. There's no timetable yet for when the data center will be up again and running smooth, but they're saying that the 3 days they took in silence was because they wanted to figure out exactly what's going on. Now, I agree that you don't necessarily want to say anything right away. However, Apple should, I still believe, have said something to let people know that there had been a breach, but more details were going to come soon, or more details were going to come later, to explain exactly what it was, just so people understand, because the developers using this website don't know what's going on. All they know is that the server is down, and it's down for 2 days, it's down for a day, then it's down for 2 days, and now it's down for 3 days, and they're not hearing anything from Apple. That's bound to get you worried. You're trying to figure out, well, what's going on? Why isn't Apple saying anything? So I understand that they didn't want to fully say what was going on until they had more information. But the fact that the server is down, people are going to know. You can't get away from that. It's not like it's something you can hide for 3 days and then say something about it. People are going to know the server is down almost immediately because there are thousands of developers using that service. So I think Apple should have come out a little sooner, but this is all a part of how Apple does their business. Apple doesn't like to admit when hackers breach their system because Apple has a reputation of being a solid wall, and their ecosystem has to be protected at all costs. But in this case, Apple should have said something. They should have come out and said, hey, right away, we're having problems with our data center. We have to take it down. We're going to give you more information at a later date as we find it out. Send out that email so developers know, and then come 3 days later, you say, okay, this is what happened, and so forth. So, that's par for the course for Apple. That's nothing new for Apple in terms of how they do business, but I definitely think they could have done much better in alerting developers of this situation. Now, speaking of people with information to share, Google, one of Apple's competitors, has just released this information according to a report by CNET. If you're a Google fan, Google buys a stake in the glass display maker Himax. The company will hold a 6.3% interest in Himax displays as it looks to fund production upgrades and expand capacity. Now, does this mean, does this mean Google Glass is about to be ramped up? We don't know. According to this report, they decided to invest some cash in the company that helped it bring the head-mounted display in Google Glass to the market. Now, Himax Technologies is a Taiwan-based semiconductor maker announced on Monday that Google will be acquiring 6.3% of its subsidiary and Himax Display. The total investment in the subsidiary was not disclosed, but Google has vested interest in helping the company grow because of Google Glass. Now, the company said in a statement, they said that the purpose of the investment is to fund production upgrades, expand capacity, and further enhance production capabilities at HDI's facilities that produce liquid crystal and silicon chips and modules used in applications including head-mounted displays such as Google Glass, heads-up displays, and Pico projector products, the company said in a statement. Now, the Google Glass eyewear allows users to do a range of things from snapping photos to taking video to getting directions to and from any location. Himax provides the display technology for those glasses as well as surf the web, check your Twitter feed, Facebook status, stuff like that. And according to Himax, Google reserves the right to continue buying up shares in Himax Display for a period of 1 year, and if it does so, the search giant will own at most about 15%, or more accurately 14.8% of Himax Display. Assuming closing conditions and regulatory approvals are met, Himax expects Google transition to close this quarter. So, I mean, what does that mean? That Google is ramping up? Google is ramping up their display, their glass display for Google Glass. Is that what that means? I mean, Google is looking to ramp up production in Google Glass because, according to Google, they're coming out with Google Glass in 2014. They said sometime in 2014. So, if they can do that, if they are on track to produce Google Glass enough for the consumer market, this would make sense to buy a stake in Himax, especially since this is the company that's going to be making the glass panels for Google Glass. It would make sense that Google would try to own a part of the company that's going to be making their products. That's how Google does it. Google doesn't necessarily just hand over production to companies without their approval. Google will buy companies. They will acquire talent in order to make sure that their products have a certain quality. Now, although the Google Nexus is made by ASUS, ASUS makes the Nexus tabs for Google, You might say, well, what stake does Google have in Jesus? And as far as I know, I don't know those exact figures if Google has a stake in Jesus or not. But Google would it would be to their advantage to make sure they have stakes in every company that makes products for them, because that way they can control the quality of the product, and they can also control how the product turns out and things like that. So the fact that Google is doing this, in my opinion, definitely makes sense. It makes sense that Google would buy a stake in HiMax, because why wouldn't they? If they have the opportunity to, this is only going to help them produce better product. And HiMax is the producers of their Google Glass. This little glass right here in the corner of this guy's eye, that's what HiMax is producing for Google. And so therefore this is definitely something that makes sense to me. It makes sense that Google would include or try to buy a stake in this company, just to make sure that the quality of it was definitely top notch, and that they could control the quality assurance of the product and stuff like that. So we gotta wait and see how this thing turns out. By the end of the year, is Google going to be able to get all of their Google Glass components and everything made? We just have to wait and see. We have to wait and see if this is definitely something that is going to work. So definitely we have to check that out. So so we're gonna take a quick break right here. And coming up after the break, because we want to take a break, but we want to let you know what's coming up in the next segment. Facebook feature phone platform scores 100 million users. Just when you thought you hadn't heard anything from Facebook, their feature phone platform has now gone to 100 million users. But where are those users coming from? And 3D printing is expected to explode in 2014, thanks to the expiration of key patents. And Ariel could win big in a fee dispute between CBS and Time Warner. You don't want to miss that if you're a cord cutter. All of that and more coming up right after the break here on Tech Pulse. So we'll be right back.